I'm Devorah Wallen, and I'd like to share my Tea for Two, my Torah thought, for 2 minutes more or less. This week's Torah portion is Vayigash, which is the first word of the Parsha. Vayigash elav Yehuda, and Judah went up to Joseph, pleading with him. Last week we were left with a cliffhanger when Yosef had not yet revealed himself to his brothers. Now Yehuda is pleading with him to not make them leave without their youngest brother Binyamin. Yosef can no longer contain himself and reveals that he is their brother, whom they thought was dead after they threw him into the pit. He asks about his father's welfare, yet they are so dumbfounded they could not answer. He explains to them that many things happened by divine providence that brought him to the position of viceroy in Egypt. Very poignantly, he comforts them, saying, "Now don't be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me here. It was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Thus, he forgives them and tells them to bring back their father and family, and he will give them a choice region for them, their flocks, and their possessions. Yosef promises to provide for them since there will be 5 more years of famine. He asks them to tell Yaakov about everything, and the verse tells us he fell on his younger brother's neck and wept, and Binyamin wept as well. Last week I referred to the fascinating hints to Hanukkah that were in the 2 portions that straddle it. Last week Miketz and this week Vayigash. This week, Sunday and Monday were the last 2 days of Hanukkah, and here is our hidden hint in our portion. As I mentioned just before, Yosef provided his family with the land of Goshen to dwell and set up houses of Torah study. This was a distinct area away from Egypt that would allow Yaakov's family to live without influence of the Egyptian culture. The verse states that Yaakov sent Yehuda ahead of him to Yosef to show them the way toward Goshen. In this verse, the word to Goshen is Goshna, spelled Gimel Shin Nun He. These are the letters that are found on the Hanukkah dreidel. You might remember the story that the dreidel was used as a subterfuge to pretend to act like the Greeks when the soldiers would be verifying that Jews were not learning the Torah. When they were studying and the military entered, they would take out the dreidel and pretend they were playing mundane games and gambling. As soon as the soldiers would leave, the students would go back to their Torah study. This was outlawed, since it was a godly wisdom. Human wisdom they did not mind, but something holy or divine was punishable. To make sure the dreidel game did not become debased like a regular gambling game, the rabbis put the 4 letters on the dreidel, Gimel, Shin, Nun, He, and they spelled Goshna, the region that was set aside to prevent assimilation. Interestingly, the gematria, or numerical equivalent of Goshna, is 358, which equals Mashiach in gematria also. A message to glean? We can bring Goshna, the lessons of the Torah and messages of Hanukkah, into our lives despite our surroundings. We are like the oil that always rises to the top. As the rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory said, there always were 2 ways to live in a world that is often dark and full of tears. We can curse the darkness, or we can light a light, and as the Hasidim say, a little light drives out much darkness. May we all help light up the world.